Hello, welcome to Jim's Allotment Garden. This is not a usual episode. This is a shortened one to try and fit in some stuff that I've recorded over the past week or so, which hasn't quite fitted into the others because basically the videos are too long. But basically this video is all about making wormeries. Now this one here, as you can see, has only taken me probably around an hour or so to make, and it's cost me basically nothing. It's made out of scrap materials, recycled bits and bobs. And it saved me something like £40 on Amazon or you know, the other places where you can get them. In fact, they're actually a bit more expensive than that in some places. But if you're interested in making your own wormery, or a pot for stewing your compost in, you know, your comfrey leaves, etc. This is ideal. All it is a black box with a bit of plumbing and a wooden lid, and this is more than sufficient to last you for a good 20 years, you know, with your wormery, etc. So this episode's a bit of a shorter one, but I'll basically just go through the quick basics of how to make one of these so you can make one for yourselves and save yourself a fortune. So welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how to make a wormery, and basically all it's going to be is this black box, as I explained in the previous video, and I've just sorted out some scraps of wood. These are just bits of pallet. I'm going to make a wooden lid for it, and basically all that's going to consist of is this piece here. I'm going to cut that in half lengthways, and then I'm going to make two sort of side pieces, one either side. That's going to go underneath these pieces, and then so I'll cut this to the same shape as the inside of the box, and then there'll be one obviously either side, and then these pieces then will screw into these. Then as soon as I've got all that together, what I'll do is I'll then from underneath just draw around the line of the lid, and then what I'll do is I'll cut just on the outside of that line so there's a bit of a lip, so when it does rain the water will sort of run off this and go down the side rather than actually going into it. And then that's basically the lid made for the box. Obviously you need a box with some ventilation in it, so I'll be cutting some holes along the top for ventilation, and then along the bottom all you need is a way to drain the liquid off. Now this same box can be used for both the stewing of the comfrey and stuff like that, and also your wormery. So basically the same box will do either. And what you need to do is in the bottom you need to place a tank fitting, which is one of these things here. And if you imagine the tank fits in this gap here, and you just tighten that nut up, and then it basically will generate a watertight seal against that. So basically that'll then stick out obviously at the bottom. And then just off that, because that's a 22mm fitting, I don't want to go out and buy one, but that's a 22mm fitting. And these are just some fittings that I've got lying about in the garage. So I need to go from 22 down to the 15mm pipe. So I'm just going to use a reducer. Obviously you don't need to do this. If you do go to a shop, just get a 15mm reducer, or you can keep it all at 22mm if you want. But I've got a tap that's in 15mm, and I've also got a reducer. So what I'll do is I'll put the 22 on, some 22mm pipe, then the reducer will go on sort of like that down to 15mm pipe, and then I shall use either this tap or that one. I've not quite decided yet. That's just a normal one off that's one that I've recycled off a washing machine, and that's just a standard 50mm isolation tap. Either will do. Obviously that one I can open and close with my hand, so ideally I'll use that one. And this one you either open and close with a screwdriver, which isn't too bad really, but ideally I'll have this so I can just open it at will with my fingers. But the adapter or the thread on the other side is quite an unusual one, which goes onto the flexible pipes that you get on the back of washing machine. So if I do use this one, what I'm going to have to do is use a flexible pipe, which I have got one of actually, but I don't really want to use that if necessary. So what I'll probably do is use this isolation tap. What I might do is, as this bit here is steel, what I might do is weld like a tag on there like that, so I can open it and close it by my hand. And then I'll just put a length of 50mm pipe down there. That will feed then into a just an old pop bottle, and then that'll all sort of sit, if you imagine, over the sort of bottom of here, coming down here. Then I'll just put the bottle on, and then I can open the tap, and then it'll fill all of the juice that I need for the plant feed out of this tank into the bottle, and then I can obviously then use that diluted to water the greenhouse or whatever other plants. So the first thing I'm going to do is just quickly cut round this to make the two side pieces, and then I'll be screwing all of that onto this wood. I'll just quickly sand it down. I shan't show you this because you've seen me doing this a number of times, so I don't really want to keep repeating myself with showing you sort of similar clips of me doing stuff. So I'm just going to make the wooden lid, and then I'll put this in the bottom, and then I'll do another quick clip of showing you how I've got on so far, and then basically I'll show you this being installed up the allotment, ready to make either the wormery or the tub for stewing the comfrey leaves. Okay, so that's the lid done, and I've just quickly sanded it down and sanded all the edges. And if I can just explain how I made it, if you look on the underneath, what I've done is just by putting a piece of wood up against this, I've drawn round the underneath of it, which has given me this contour here. That obviously fits snugly into the edges here, and that's obviously the right length. So I've cut those out first, and I've just sanded round the edge of that just to make it nice and smooth. And then all I've done is put the pieces of wood together, these pieces, on the bench, roughly the right size, and then I've screwed one end in this, pushing all of these pieces of wood together to make sure that there was the minimum gap between them. I've then screwed in the end one, and then screwed all the rest of them in. I'd already pre-drilled these holes and countersunk them, as you can see, as you've seen me do in the past. And then by putting the box on it upside down, I could then judge where this one needed to go. And then all I basically did was drew a line along where it needed to be. Then I drilled that piece of wood, again screwing at one end and then pulling the pieces of wood together. I then screwed this end in and then basically just filled in the edge. So that basically held all the pieces of wood together. Then by putting the box on it upside down, I then drew round the box onto the wood, and then I cut that out. You can do this in a number of ways, but the straights I cut out with the circular saw, and then I cut up that end down that side and down this side, and then I cut the edges round here with the jigsaw with a narrow blade on. And then all I did then was turn the whole thing upside down, or should I say the right way up, and then basically what I did is sanded all the way around the edge and all the surface to make it nice and smooth, and then I've just put a slight bevel round the edge there just to neaten it up, and just to protect it slightly, because wood will always kind of split on the edges here. So if you put a bevel on, you'll find that apart from the fact it's nice and you know, it's much nicer to to sort of touch, and there's no sharp edges to catch your hands on or whatever. It'll keep the wood from splitting or whatever at the edges. Now what I will do with this top is I'll just quickly treat it with some I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do yet, either fence paint or clear varnish. I think probably fence paint's probably going to be better, because if I do it with varnish, the water might get underneath the varnish later on and it might look a mess. So that's basically the top. As always, this is completely recycled. This was just a piece of pallet all the wood here is pallets. Obviously what I've done is I've screwed it up from underneath, so that obviously this is the side that's going to get all the weather, so there's no sort of screw heads on this side which is going to get the weather. That's all inside where it'll be protected, and there's some gap along here to let air in, so that so the worms or whatever I put in here will be you know, have some airflow in there. Obviously you don't want too much, but you need to keep it reasonably warm in there. But also when it does get hot later on, you know, you need some airflow in there. And what I might have to do in the summer, like I've done in the past, is just put a something underneath just to lift up one end, just to make sure they don't get too hot in there. Now the way that this is, the way that the sides of this will actually sit quite nicely on top of the blue barrels, which is where it's going to go. So this will actually sit between two barrels. So what I'm going to do is fit the tank thing basically about there in the middle. So the next step is to drill a hole through the bottom at the same size as that, and then I shall fit the plumbing on, and I'll show you that in the next clip. Okay, so this is a really important trick, and this is useful for a lot of different things. I did the recycling video the other day on how many different things you can recycle bottles into, and this will feed into that. This is a 22mm fitting, which is basically fitted onto the end of there. That's basically a compression joint. So you need a 22mm compression joint, and you need a 15mm compression joint, and you will find, if you get the brass ones like this, the 15mm one, turn it upside down and it will sit exactly in the 22mm. Can you see? And what you need to do then is solder those two together, and I'll do that now, and then I'll show you what you end up with in a second. Okay, so now that's soldered on. As you can see, I've soldered it all around the edge and on the inside. I don't know if you can see that, but the whole point is the 22mm fitting is exactly the right thread to screw onto a pop bottle, and this will become useful later on in the season when I show you. I don't know if you've noticed the things coming up on the future episodes, but I will be making an irrigation system, two of which will actually involve these bottles, and this is exactly how I intend to attach the pipe work, obviously feeding the water, to the bottle, so that'll come in. But for now, what I need to do is the bottle, if you imagine, will be at the bottom, obviously underneath there, but as I open the tap to let the fertilizer out of here into the bottle, I need to let air out of the bottle. So what I'm going to be doing is drilling the some holes in the top here. What I'm going to do is just use a small sort of 3mm drill. And what I'm going to be doing is drilling, if you imagine, down the side like that into there. So I'll drill through onto this face on the inside here, so when the bottle's attached, it'll let air in. Sorry, let air out of the bottle to let the fluid enter the bottle. Okay, so as you can see there are the holes, and those are basically going to let air into the or air out of the bottle as it fills. Now, obviously, if you want to make a fitting to use this as a sprinkling system or an irrigation system, obviously you wouldn't put these holes in because obviously you want a watertight seal. But that's the top. So now I'm ready to put it all together. What I have actually done is I've found a 15mm tank fitting, which I'm going to use rather than the 22mm, because basically there's a lot less to put in this on, because I don't need the adapter bit to go from 15 to 22. So I'll be putting that on the bottom of the tank. Obviously I need to clean it up, it's got a bit of silicone on all over it, so I'll clean that up and then I'll drill a hole in the bottom of the tank and then fit it all together, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, so there's the finished article. So we've got a container to have all of the worms or the stewing or whatever we're going to do there, and then coming off, just take the lid off, and then in here we've got the drain at the bottom there. As you can see, I've put some white silicone sealer around there, just to make sure it's absolutely sealed, because the bottom of the box, as you can see, is shaped, so I just wanted to make sure that was perfectly sealed, but it's in nice and tight. And if you can see, I don't know if you can see down the pipe, but you can actually see the tap underneath. So basically that comes out here onto this little short piece of 15mm pipe, and then down to the tap. So as soon as I open that tap there with a screwdriver, it'll then release the liquid out of the tank down this pipe into the bottle at the bottom, and obviously that's screwed into this fitting here that we've made. As you can see, there are the holes which will let the air out. So basically, if I just quickly take that off, so basically what will happen is the liquid will come out of here, fill the bottle, and then above there are these 6 holes here, which will then release the air out of the bottle to allow the bottle to fill properly. So I can basically leave the bottle on there, you know, whilst it's filling. So if what I could potentially do is leave the tap open and then just allow that to fill, and then as soon as it's filled, shut the tap off, take the bottle out, and then put another bottle on and do it that way. Or I could just leave it for the tank to fill with the liquid, and then obviously just put the bottle on, open the tap, and fill the bottle from what's inside the tank. So that's basically the finished article. Now I'll just go and quickly take it up the garden. I'm going to leave it in here for a couple of weeks, because A, I won't be using it, and B, I just want that silicone to perfectly cure. But what I'll do is I'll show you up the garden where I'm intending to put it when it's in use, to give you an idea of what I'm thinking. So there you go, it can sit in a nice quiet corner of the allotment like this. It's just sitting on top of the water butts, and then obviously, you know, it's at the right kind of height to gain access to put compost in or whatever you're going to do. And then I can either leave that like that, it's not in anybody's way, and I can obviously just take the bottle off, and then it can stay sort of like that, not hurting anybody, or I can sort of leave the bottle in place like that. Just quickly screw it in. As I say, it only takes a second to bob the bottle on, and then obviously when I want to get the juice out of here, just open that tap and it'll fill the bottle, and then I can store the bottle in the greenhouse or whatever as and when I'm using it. But obviously I'll be taking the water from here anyway, so I'll probably leave the bottle there, drain off what I need for that day, get the water, and then just top up the water with the liquid from the Wormery, and away you go. So it's, you know, so it's quite a logical place to have it there, you know, because obviously, you know, you'd be mixing it with the water anyway. And what I also intend to do is make another one which will be identical to this, which will sit here. One will be the Wormery, the other one will be the stewing pot for the comfrey, which I'll be doing later in this year as well. But the actual design is identical. One will have worms in it, one will just have comfrey in it. But there's an idea for you to make at the moment whilst we can't get on the allotment. I know when I made this this wormer and everything, I went quite quickly, particularly with the plumbing side of it. If any of you would like to make one of these, and I've gone a little bit too quickly and not explained myself properly on this, please do put a question down below. and I'll try and answer any questions that you have regarding putting the plumbing and the rest of it together. One quick note with the weather vane, it actually undid itself earlier in the week, so the rotary part here undid the thread from the bottom, so I have actually tightened it back down and it's stayed down this time, so I'll give it a really good nick down with the spanners. But if you are going to make one of these, one thing that I would advise is when you finally put it together, I'd put some Loctite on the threads, and if you're not sure what Loctite is, that's basically like a glue that you put on the threads of nuts and bolts, and when you put them together it basically sets in there and stops the nuts and bolts from coming apart. I've been asked a few questions by Nigel over in Wolverhampton from DIS Walls regarding the drainage on or the guttering on the greenhouses. This is what Bill, one of my neighbours, has done. He's basically just blocked off this side and he's put a down pipe on the back there into a tank, and he's done something similar at the front here, and all he's done is basically just bolted on a bit of pipe there to feed into a tank, and again blocked off the end there, and by the look of it he's just done it with a bit of flashing tape or a bit of lead on the side. How effective this is I'm not quite sure, as I explained, Nigel, but that's just perhaps another idea for you to look at. Just a real quick comment. I was asked about putting guttering onto greenhouses this week, and as you can see, John, one of my neighbours here, what he's actually done is he's rolled over the side of the greenhouse and he's put full-sized drainage on there, and obviously he's done this on the other side as well. He's actually got 3 greenhouses sort of bolted together here, and he's obviously draining each side into barrels very similar to what I've got, but what he's actually done is rolled over the edges here to use full-sized drainage. So that's one way you can potentially do it. Well, I hope this episode of Jim's Allotment Garden has been of some use to you. I just want to say a massive thank you to all of the subscribers. I've actually reached 500 subscribers now, and I really do appreciate all of the support for everybody that's subscribed to the channel. I really do want to say a heartfelt thank you to everybody, and there'll be more coming up. There's plenty more coming up, and there's loads to do on the allotment now. I'm really itching to get out there, even though it's warm. The ground's still obviously wet, as I explained earlier on. But in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be getting out there, getting my spade warmed up, and really get stuck into the digging, so I can start to prepare the ground. So thank you again for watching. If you have any comments about anything that I've explained today or in any previous episodes, please do put your comments below, and I'll see you on the next edition of Jim's Allotment Garden. Bye bye now.